and I hope that my connection is better tonight than it was last week. When I got off last week, my husband did tell me that it was bad on the television and everywhere else in the house. So I think it was not just my computer. And Becky said she had trouble with her video last week. And I think maybe it was the heat. Of course, that may be a problem again today. We had 109 at our house today. So I think the heat is messing with the electricity, which is causing people to have problems with internet and all kinds of things. So I noticed at least a couple of you in your cars, maybe you're cooler than we are at home with that AC blowing in your face. So that's a good thing. Well, we do have a guest tonight. Our guest is my daughter, Meredith Walling, and she's my firstborn, and she's the one that makes me old. Actually, the brother is one that makes me feel old. She makes me actually old because I had her first. But I'll take care of a little family gossip here right now. Meredith, your brother has COVID just a few minutes ago, tested positive. So we're quarantining here at the house, but hadn't had a chance to tell her that yet. But Meredith was a life skills teacher for many years. I think there were 12, weren't there? 12 years in your teaching career. And she taught in several different districts, I think 3 or 4 around the state, several in the Metroplex area before she took my grandchildren away and moved to the Austin area. And she took her husband with her, and my 2 grandsons, and they moved down there. Is it 5 years ago? 4 years ago? 5, 6, 5, 5 years. Seems like forever. But they moved to the Austin area, and she continued to teach there for a few years, and then moved over to a position with TEA about 2 years ago, I think. Is that right? 2 years ago. And now she is a, well, I'll let her tell you a little bit more about what she does there, what her official title is. But she does work with school districts to help them get into compliance with all of the rules and regulations and expectations that the federal government has and that the state has for us as school districts on the special ed side of things. And so when your district is getting ready for an audit, Meredith is one of the people that helps with that from the TEA side of things. So her special ed knowledge is vast, but her experience in the classroom is all in life skills type classrooms with those populations that we've been studying this summer. So I always like to bring her in for one class period during this study, because this is where she is just an absolute expert. And she's also very helpful with the districts that she works with from the TEA side of things to help them understand the most appropriate placements for those students and the types of services that they need and that are most appropriate. So I'm going to just kind of turn it over to her. And Meredith, you can share your screen from your vantage point, can't you? Okay. And so we're already recording, and I'm going to let Meredith just take it. And you all, we're going to be very fluid tonight. And if you all want to ask questions, please just do so. And Meredith is very receptive to any of that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Well, thank y'all so much. I'm going to get this into a presenting mode in just a second. Alrighty. Yes, as my mother, Dr. Kevin, shared with y'all that this is my great area of interest and expertise, and I'm very glad to be with y'all this evening. She did give me a quick rundown of my bio. I did receive my undergraduate in special education from Texas Women's University. Then I pursued a master's degree in autism intervention, as primarily a lot of my students in my classrooms were on the autism spectrum. I'm currently in a PhD program at Texas State University, pursuing a PhD in school improvement. I decided that to help outcomes for our special education students, that it might be a good idea to broaden my scope a little bit to a school-based approach. And so that is going to be my PhD program. I'm 1 year in. I'm to the point where people ask me, are you almost done? And I groan. I am not almost done. I am 1 year in, 2 years of courses and 1 year of dissertation to go. But I definitely have been learning a lot in that program. As my mom stated, my teaching has been in self-contained classrooms, working with students with significant cognitive disabilities, autism, orthopedic impairments, auditory and visual impairments, medically fragile students. I taught in Hercules, Bedford. If you're familiar with the DFW Metroplex, Hercules, Bedford. I also taught in Northwest ISD in between Fort Worth and the Denton area. And I taught in Eagle Mountain, Saginaw. I kind of went back through school in a way and started teaching lower elementary. A lot of my students were in kindergarten and lower elementary my first few years, and then I've kind of worked my way back through school. So I taught lower elementary, moved up to upper elementary, then on to middle school. And then after moving to Austin area, teaching in the Westlake area, I taught high school. And so my years took me all the way back through school, and which has afforded me an interesting spot where almost all of my students are about the same age. The students that I taught in kindergarten were graduating about the same time that my students that I taught in high school were. So as I work through my dissertation topic, the focus is going to be post-secondary outcomes for students with significant cognitive disabilities, and what those factors are. And so I'm hoping that all of those students being about the same age is going to be a great pool of participants in my research going forward.
Meredith, one of
Yes.
our chapters this week, I think I mentioned this to you last week when we talked, one of our chapters is about, making relationships for students with disabilities. And so I want you to talk about that a little bit today, because
Yes.
that is one of our focus chapters for this week.
Yep.
And the things that you did in your classroom.
Definitely will.
Okay.
Will do. The Texas Education Agency is my current role, and I am a review and support specialist with the Office of Special Populations and Monitoring. That sounds really complex, and some days it feels complex, but it's really just working with school districts on reaching federal and state compliance. And so I do, as was stated, we're calling cyclical and targeted reviews of special education programs. So if you ever have an instance where you end up with an interview, a phone call, or a Zoom interview with a TEA employee, we're really just trying to find ways that we can offer targeted supports for your program to improve the outcomes for students. And so it's not meant to be punitive. We're just hoping to get everybody at a high level of standard. So going forward, I'm sure y'all have seen a definition of low incidence being in a low incidence class. And I don't have to read this to y'all. I know that's a pet peeve for a lot of people, including myself. I also sat through the past few days of being in a conference and looking at a number of PowerPoints at the Special Education Administrators Conference this week. And so low incidence is by definition ones that happen less frequently. And in Texas, those numbers mirror what they do federally. And we have, our deaf, blind, visual impairment, hearing impairment, orthopedic impairment, and also autism and intellectual disabilities do fall on that, even though for me, that's a very large focus. It feels like the majority, but when you look at the numbers, obviously a learning disability and speech impairment take up the vast majority of students in Texas that are served under special education services. Going forward, talking about friendships, you may want to move your little Zoom screen if that is blocking like it was mine. But really focusing on those friendships for low incidence disabilities is something that the teachers, it's just another aspect of our classroom, facilitating those relationships. I did participate in a number of these formal initiatives that are focused around friendships for students with low incidence disabilities. I did have a chapter of Circle of Friends in a few of the schools that I taught in. This looks like what we would call a reverse inclusion that we worked through in several of the settings that I was in. Students in elementary, mostly upper grades, 4th, 5th, 6th. And we also did it in the middle school setting where students would come into our classrooms. They would do a number of games. We would do crafts. I was always really focused on not having it be like another paraprofessional in the class. Really their use of modeling for our students and working through friendships, modeling those friendly type of interactions, conversations, like they would have with their friends on the playground, was really what I wanted to focus in on. I didn't want it to feel like a mismatched relationship where one person is aiding the other. And so just coming alongside, you might call that, a parallel play, but modeling the craft or modeling the game and really just having authentic interactions was very important to me. As I stated, we did have a circle of friends. That is, all of these are formal initiatives that you can find internet resources for. I would do a small training for my students just about confidentiality and about the students that they may encounter in my class. Students with minimal verbal skills and what that might look like and how they can communicate with them, whether that be augmentative communication or just, speaking to them even though they might not be speaking back. And so the Friendship Foundation was something that was a newer find for me when I was working on this project. But Best Buddies was also something that I've worked with in the high school setting. They would pair students with a buddy, and then there are some activities that go on site, different, like a dance or a just some sort of social activity, an ice cream social or something like that. But then they also, in Best Buddies, they offer it because the students are older and there is a certain level of independence for high school students, that those students can engage in friendship type activities, real friendships outside of the structure of Best Buddies. And so they hope that those students may go to the movies together. They may, meet up at the mall or whatever anyone might do with their friends as that happens naturally. And so it's really kind of a focus, some pre-work that's done on staff end of things to match students appropriately. Oftentimes we'll match, young ladies with other young ladies and young men with young men. But that also may mean students that have an experience with individuals with disabilities may paired with more complex students. I had a student who was fluent in American Sign Language. And so he was paired with someone who also had a background in sign language. And so it really takes work on the forefront to match those personalities well. A lot of people are sometimes based off of their interest in sports. Just as natural friendships occur, there's just a little bit more support there from the staff. And so it really helps to know your students well and know their interests, to be able to connect them with others that that also have those same interests. I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with Night to Shine. That is a Tim Tebow a formal event, but that's also an opportunity for a more short-term friendship interaction, where sometimes that does develop into seeing each other outside of that activity. But I've volunteered personally there 3 years, and that is a really, really fun activity um, to participate in, and there's a lot of volunteers. A lot of these are really having to do with students being friends with typically developing peers, but then there's a lot that you can do within the classroom for them to be friends with each other, and it's a similar orchestration of similar interests, opportunities to you might bring in a character that a few of the students enjoy, and they connect over that. Just like that would happen naturally in an elementary or middle school classroom. What I see happening with my own children, they connect over Harry Potter and even all different types of video games and things. And that just kind of takes a little bit of intentional orchestrating on a teacher's end, to bring those things in when the students might not necessarily have that conversation naturally. They may be more internal focused with their interests, but being able to make those connections across students in their own classroom. I've seen really authentic and wonderful friendships develop across our students, and just being able to have those as they go forward into potential secondary settings is really great for anyone. When you're looking at a whole person, that person is not just academics. That person is all of these things that we're going to be talking about. When you look at your own children or your own self, you're not purely your academic pursuits. And so I think it's a blessing and a privilege to be able to be a little bit more focused on a wide variety of things like that. As a self-contained teacher, I was kind of given the go-ahead to really look at a student as a whole child, a whole person as they grew older, and not just focus on their academic development, but being able to look at all aspects of them and make sure that those are, that we're looking at all avenues of growth, and really developing a full life for after our time in school together. So that was a lot of talking. Are there any questions or?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Great. We can also, I always like to hit very, quickly on romantic relationships. Those are very complex, and those are going to be very individualized, based on the person's developmental level, and that also has to do a lot with their family, their family's comfort level, especially if it's a student that will not have guardianship over themselves in the future. A lot of those things kind of need to be taken into consideration. I noticed this especially as I got into high school. There was a lot of, who are you going to take to prom? Is this going to be a date? And you just need to be cognizant and careful around those things when you're facilitating that. Everything starts as a friendship. That should be the case all the time in romantic relationships, but really insinuating or facilitating anything further than that probably is not best to do from a school side of things. If families decide to facilitate those types of relationships, or if individuals are high cognitively enough to do that for themselves, then that will that will be something they pursue independently from the classroom. So going forward, recreation, this is a great fun thing to pursue. Obviously, Special Olympics, this is one of my students in the CHAPS shirt that I've gone to many Special Olympics activities. That is kind of the first thought as far as recreation. The Special Olympics, there are so many sports. You think of your traditional sports, things you might have seen already, but there are so many different types of sports, so that students of all orthopedic levels are able to participate, are able to have a great time and shine. Special Olympics, if you've never been to a Special Olympics event, I find them to be incredibly fun and very rewarding to take part in. Some school districts really facilitate Special Olympics. They have teams, and then others have opted to not necessarily provide space and time and resources dedicated to that. But I've seen really positive things coming from that. Also, camps. There are a lot of growing number of opportunities for students with low incidence disabilities to participate in camps. One of them down in the Austin area is Camp. And I thought I was hearing that wrong at first, but it is Camp. And it's something that students can go on for a weekend or during the summer, a full week, where they really get to engage in all of those traditional camp activities, and they're all done in an adaptive way. So those staff members have really, gotten creative, gone above and beyond, and created opportunities for all of those activities to be accessible by the individuals there. And even students who have significant behavioral needs, significant communication needs are all welcome in these camp environments. As far as recreation and fitness, I did definitely notice a focus on fitness in a secondary setting. Maintaining a healthy weight and maintaining a lifetime of fitness was definitely a focus as students got older, definitely after hitting puberty. I mean, we all know as women, it gets harder and harder as the years go on. So setting yourself up with good habits going forward into your life was something that I saw an increased focus on. We did have adapted PE classes, and at the high school I was at, there was a new initiative for yoga, and so that was very accessible for my students and really enjoyable, where we got to doing they went to yoga every day, and sometimes we did yoga every morning. I'm not a yoga instructor, but there's always YouTube videos that are pretty much focused on stretching, movement, something that can be adapted for anyone in the class. At our within the district that I was in most recently, there's a post-secondary setting, an adult transition center, where they will go to a traditional gym with a YMCA or a 24-hour fitness, and access their all the machines, cardio machines, weights within a safe range, and just making those environments accessible was a great opportunity for everyone involved.
Meredith,
Yes.
did the community gym just donate the memberships, or how did that work? Do you know?
No, they paid the memberships.
They paid the
Just as they would, especially because of the area that I was in,
Which was a higher
a high
socioeconomic.
socioeconomic area. Yes,
Do you mean like the
definitely.
YMCA?
I'm sorry.
Do you mean like the YMCA?
Yeah, the YMCA, I mean, 24 Hour Fitness, LA Fitness. There was actually a strength and conditioning gym that was right across from our adult transition center that they decided there was enough interest that they created an entire class, like, an exercise class that you would access at a gym. They created, because there was enough students coming, they made a kind of a class period that was focused on the students coming from the adult transition center. And because that was already kind of a small group setting, like high intensity interval type of gym, they created a class just for them. And but they did pay their own way there, and that was something that they were wanting to do going forward. I think that you probably, if you were in a lower socioeconomic area, you could definitely work with the YMCA. You could work with donors that might be able to cover that membership. But in the area that I was in, that wasn't a stumbling block. And so we just everyone paid their own membership, and then they had access outside of it. I knew a lot of my students who did personal training on the weekends. And so not necessarily, for a physique standpoint, but just a direct instruction and focus on safety and form. They pursued time in the gym separate from anything that we were doing school-based.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard of that before, but that's a good idea.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
the
Yeah.
school district where Meredith was is the Eanes ISD. That's where Westlake High School is, out there on the west side of Austin, where Matthew McConaughey lives, and where Elon Musk has been hanging out with his latest baby mama. So it's that side of town where the rich and famous are living. So they can afford gym memberships for their kids.
Yes, absolutely. They can.
Go
But
ahead.
being able, oh, you're fine. Being able to do that, I have found that, kind of where there's a will, there's a way. And there's always businesses that are willing to work with you, donors that are willing to put forward that. Sometimes it does take extra efforts, extra networking on the instructor side of things, but it is possible in a variety of settings, not just ones that are able and willing to self-pay. I know that in other settings as well. I worked in a middle school that was not considered high socioeconomic, definitely Title I school. And thankfully, they just had a really amazing set of coaches that opened their weight room and a lot of their athletic facilities to us, and really helped us through creating programs for our students and overseeing that as an opportunity. We didn't have to go outside the school. We were able to just go around the corner into the gym. And it definitely does take creating relationships with those general education teachers. I don't know how many of y'all are gen ed teachers by trade already, but I started in a self-contained setting and was always in a self-contained setting. So this is something that goes across the board, not just recreation and fitness, but creating relationships with general education teachers and with just staff in the general school helps so much to create opportunities for our students, whether it be for creating a work type of task on campus, creating inclusion opportunities, in this case recreation, being able to be on a friendly basis with those coaches can open a door for your students. And not all teachers think to do that immediately. When they are on good terms with you, they are more apt to be on good terms with your students and be welcoming and accommodating. So Definitely, that's just a plug to be friends, be friendly across the campus, even though you don't necessarily want to go in the teacher's lounge. Taking opportunities to build those relationships outside of your classroom and outside of your department really can benefit your students in the long run. So that's a tangent, but an important one from my perspective. Okay, teaching academics. I'm sure that there's a lot of focus on that from the classroom side of things and what you've already had. So I will just hit the highlights here. I kind of broke it into 3 types of teaching scenarios, where first off, where you're just doing a modified general education curriculum, working through a vertical alignment and going towards prerequisite skills, always taking the TEKS and going down to a former TEK, a lower grade level TEK. This is a lot of times a default, and it's difficult. It's very difficult. It's difficult to find the right level. It's difficult to find applicable TEKS. When you're looking at, the student may learn, the content of 5 or 10 TEKS. How do we choose the right ones that's going to be relevant for the student in the long run? So that's a lot of working with the parent, working with your general education counterparts, and sometimes you can also use the star alt. I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with the star alternate, but the star alt will highlight and prioritize TEKS to focus on, and you can go on to TEA website for star alt resources, and you can find out ahead of time which of the TEKS they're going to be focusing on, and then you can focus on those TEKS in your instruction. And so that is a pretty narrow focus, and I think not really looking at the whole child, the whole person, but this is an approach. And a lot of times when there's no resources, they say, this is what you do. And so this is kind of a starting point, a jumping off point. And when there's no other option, this is free. This is where you can go online and at least get some direction. Going forward, an individualized curriculum. This is also a lot easier when you have a very small number of students, where you can really focus and create a day around their individual needs based on their IEPs. I wrote this discrete trial training, which is very popular within an ABA focused environment. Also, I know teachers that work off of this VB map, especially in earlier grades, which, as you can see, there's verbal behavior milestones assessment and placement program. They do this right when they receive a student, and then because it does note milestones, they write IEPs based on the milestones in the VB map, and then go forward with their instruction based on that. And the ABLES is a similar curriculum, and it's just less focused on verbal behavior, but adapted behaviors. I also noted, because of its popularity here in kind of the capital area, Linda Mood Bell, which is something that I've received training on since coming down to the Austin area. This is visualizing and verbalizing. You may have heard of talkies. There's also shooting stars, and it's really a reading comprehension. It's pre-reading comprehension. So it's being able to visualize. A lot of students on the autism spectrum especially struggle with making a picture in their mind based off what they read. And so it's a focus on visualizing. And there are Linda Mood Bell clinics, especially here. Also, a lot in California. There's a focus in California, but it is a nationwide and international program that you can get trained in if your school district is in favor of using that. It is kind of a focus on, like I said, reading skills, pre-reading skills, but that is very individualized and leveled. Everyone kind of moves through the program, and all of these, they're kind of moving through a program independently based on their milestones. And this is a very individualized approach. And it really is based on how many students you have. If you're able to really design a day and a curriculum around a specific student's needs. And then there are more broadly based adopted curriculums. I noted some of the leveled ones. Unique and News to You are definitely, News to You is underneath Unique, and this is definitely the most widely used, especially in the United States. I've used it in almost all the school districts that I've been in, and I will give a shout out to Unique News to You. They did an amazing job during the pandemic of they immediately made everything on their websites free for anyone. You know, it's usually a parceled subscription. You buy this part, you buy this part, you buy this part. But during the height of the pandemic, I was teaching online. I was teaching self-contained students through Zoom. And I was very, very thankful for all of the Unique and News to You resources, because that's the only way we made it through, with their leveled readers, their interactive online opportunities. They had assessment opportunities also, all within their website. So if you're going into a setting where you might be teaching, a lot of times the school district will buy one membership here, and then you parcel out the resources, you send it out in PDFs. There's definitely a benefit to having your own login and being able to make student profiles, but you can access the curriculum through a shared login. Definitely. There's also some of Links, Faces, and Factor are ones that I haven't personally used, but they I think are cheaper than Unique. And they maybe, if you can't get your school district to invest in a Unique membership, Links, Faces, and Factor are all based on functional curriculum, life skills focused curriculums, and then a plug for the Autism Helper level curriculum. I've worked directly with the Autism Helper, which is a website blogger, and the curriculum writer, and she has really awesome leveled curriculum that, as one of her bloggers, I got free access to. And so I integrated that into my classroom in my later years, and found it very, very helpful. Students are able to work through that curriculum, but there is, you can be working on a specific topic, and the leveled curriculum can really go across anyone in a self-contained setting. They have very much pre-readers, pre-writers, all the way to, I would say, kind of a 5th, 6th grade level, which I utilized in the high school setting for some of my students. They have, I think she's up to 5 levels for all of her subjects. So that is a very helpful opportunity if you're able to invest in that. The next topic, if there's no questions on academic instruction. Oh, okay. Community-based instruction. I did want to note the difference in community-based instruction versus a field trip. A field trip is going to be something that everyone does the same. It's going to be something that happens probably one time. It's really a fun focused you're going to go see a play or go to the zoo. That's not something that, it's a great opportunity, and students should absolutely be included on those field trip opportunities, but that's not going to be the same as a community-based instruction that isn't going to be as focused on long-term skills and building that student's accessibility to the community, because we all have occasional access to the zoo and to the fun things out there, but a community-based instruction is going to be something that they encounter frequently. And also in my setting, and I think this goes across the board, it's best to do it in very small groups, really focused on the students that need those skills, and being able to focus on the environments that they're going to encounter personally.
How small is small?
I've done a lot with just one student. And then we've done a lot with 4 to 5 students. I would say once you get to 15, 20 students, that's not something that is naturally going to occur in the environment. They're not going to have 10, 12 people that have similar needs to them moving throughout the community on a regular basis. And so really, I would say kind of on a high end of things is going up in the 4 or 5 range, because you really are working on the communication skills. It's very highly facilitated at first, and then sometimes these community-based instructions become more and more independent. And in the high school setting that I was in, some of these resulted in jobs for them when they were in the upper grades and in their post-secondary setting. They were able to take those places. I'll say there's a Westlake athletic complex that we did a few community-based instructions at, and then it was close enough to walk to from our setting, and students started working there to wipe down tables, gather up equipment, any number of things. And they kind of turned that into a work opportunity. The same thing was true for the local library. We had students, we went pretty frequently in very small groups, and then they were able to translate that into a job opportunity later on.
What kind of work did the
So-
students do at the library?
They reshelved books. Also, the term is escaping me, but the librarians let us know that having the books flush to the end of the shelf and very even was something that visually helps people pick out books. And so we would have students that weren't actually able to alphabetize, bring books to the edge, and our students on the autism spectrum were very detail focused and able to do that really well. They would also, like I said, reshelve books. There was definitely wiping down of tables and making sure that all the chairs were aligned. They would also shred and sometimes kind of collate different printables and flyers that were going to be handed out in the community or available for people to pick up. And so sorting of all types was something I worked on in the classroom that translated into jobs for them in the community. So
I
definitely.
remember when we were in Hurst, Euless, Bedford, we had our adult transition center there, and they frequently went to Big Lots and Sonic and did a lot of I think at Big Lots they did, just getting the aisles orderly and sweeping and some things like that. Do you remember what else they did in Hurst, Euless, Bedford? Or were you even aware of any of that because you were at the
I
elementary?
think being at the elementary level, I wasn't thinking about that quite as early.
I didn't know if you had any awareness of what was going on in the transition program then.
I would say minimally. As I worked up through the grades, it became more and more of a of a focus, but I did always wish that I had thought about it earlier, and that we started, our students take many years to develop skills and familiarity with these environments. And so just getting them there, I had a student who, his mom was like, it would just be so nice if we could go to the mall and walk around, not necessarily trying on clothes, not working, not being social, but just being able to walk around and have him not grabbing people, out of curiosity, have him not sit down and, refuse to continue walking. And so we went to the mall about every other week for a long time. And then thankfully, by the time, the pandemic occurred, they were able to go to the mall to walk around. The mall was pretty much closed at that point, but that was fine. They just needed somewhere cool to get steps in, and to have some just being around outside of their home environment. And so it took very frequent exposure to that environment and practice. You problem solve through some of those things. Well, if he's grabbing at things because he's curious about textures, you're giving him something to hold in his hands, giving him something to, an opportunity to ask, to stop, to look at things or touch things, and what's okay to touch at the mall and what's not, what's okay to eat at the mall and what's not. When we go into a store, we're not going to unwrap something and immediately eat it. And so just frequent exposure to those environments that are truly their community, is a focus.
Let me ask you a question. This is one of the questions on our quiz this week,
Okay.
about selecting activities for leisure skill development. Educators should consider the chronological age appropriateness of the activity, and that's a true false question. Do you think that's true or false, Meredith?
I definitely think it's true.
It is
I
true.
hope that's correct.
Tell me why. Tell me why that's
in your book.
That is true.
So,
tell me why that's true. Why do we want it to be age appropriate?
I definitely would consider the need for age appropriateness. Just because a student may, enjoy being on the like the mall playground when they're 20, that's not really socially acceptable. It may be, jarring. There's always opportunities to take those same needs that the student may have for a vestibular motion or a sensory need, that you can translate into age appropriateness, and sometimes it's just a lack of exposure to those age appropriate opportunities. I know I had a lot of students over time who liked really childish music and things, childish movies, but then when given the opportunity to to listen to things that were more age appropriate, to go see movies that were more age appropriate, they really enjoyed them. And so it's a lot easier to, for a family to maintain things that are age appropriate, as opposed to consistently needing to cater to a younger cognitive age. And so
That's interesting. There's a video that I showed to my undergrad class about educating Peter. And it's the young man, and then he grows up, and it's the second video is graduating Peter, and it's a young man with Down syndrome, and it shows him from the third grade all the way through graduation, and how he progresses over time. And a lot of these community-based opportunities are there. Those are shown, and how he progresses through the curriculum through a fully included approach to his education. He doesn't spend time in a special ed classroom until he's in high school.
Right.
But at one point he's sitting in front of the television, and his mother has been very insistent on being included with his peers the whole time. And then when he's alone, he reverts back to watching Barney, the Barney cartoon, and it's just very telling that it seems like that's what he wants, to that very childish kind of entertainment. But you make a good point. maybe he just hasn't had that exposure at home. Maybe he hasn't had an opportunity to watch something that's maybe on a
Right.
higher level, to learn to enjoy that
Right.
so much. I don't know. It's
Yeah, and
very
what
interesting.
I would look at is, is it the songs that he's enjoying? Is it the bright colors? Is it dinosaurs?
Yeah.
What is it that he really enjoys about that? And there's ways to find that in more, grown up type of entertainment opportunities. There's always things there are plenty of adult cartoons. There's some that are very adult.
Well,
And then
yeah.
if it's a cartoon that they like, if it's if it's the songs, there's a lots of grown-up musicals. You and I both love musicals.
Yeah.
And so if it's whatever that may be, there's a way to adapt what they're enjoying of that more childlike entertainment subject to a more grown-up one.
Okay. We only have about 5 minutes. Are you
Yeah, I'll go
getting
fast.
close? Okay.
I always over talk in these things.
Yeah, you do.
I
So we really are going
I
to
do.
stop in
All right,
5
good.
minutes. Okay. So
Oh, absolutely. I would never take class longer. I would never. Um, I think I talked a little bit about this, really making things meaningful, as opposed to just accessible. There's a difference in being able to fit a wheelchair around and for an environment to really be available. I am at the end. Okay.
okay, good.
This is one of my very favorite students. I'm not supposed to have favorites, but he's one of my very favorites. And we did a ton of this instruction, and I was lucky enough to be at the high school where I was able to, science was cooking, and all of these things were very integrated into our academics. I also participated as an in-home trainer. That ADL is activities of daily living instruction. There's a lot of ways to assess that and find the gaps, and then work towards more independence in that area. And I won't get into the volunteering at the residential facility, but that has been a whole other experience to open my eyes to people with low incidence disabilities, and the ways that we can continue a lifelong development of domestic skills, independence skills, in their lives. So that can be addressed at home in conjunction with at school. I've definitely set up a lot of a homes type of center. At the high school level, I call it a station. I didn't do centers, I did stations, and it sounds just a little bit more grown up. And so we had a home station, we had a workstation, where we practice a lot of these. And I wouldn't be a TEA employee if I didn't say that there are resources online for, this is our technical assistance networks. There's tiered interventions, autism trainings, and one thing that I wish I knew about was the Complex Access Needs Network, the CAN network. There's a lot of free resources on there if you're having trouble accessing any resources that are going to be paid. There are a lot of free resources on the Complex Access Needs Network on the TEA website. So
Very good.
that was very fast talking. I apologize. I could talk hours and hours and hours every week for y'all.
You did a great job on that. I want to throw a few more of our quiz questions in to help our students out. There's one on here about limiting the number of students in curriculum-based opportunities community-based instruction. But it's funny, it's for a different reason than you said. Your reason is much better than this one. The book says apparently has something to do with negative attention being drawn to you because of a large group of people. The answer is still true. We don't want to have a large group. We want to limit the number of people. So when conducting instruction in the community, it's important to limit the number of students, whether it's to avoid negative attention or to be able to pay more attention to the needs of students individually. That's what we want to do. Okay. When developing instructional plans for teaching in the community, we also want to do a task analysis, which y'all have been doing task analysis in your projects in the last few days. If you happen to be teaching something, a targeted skill, and you get some additional skills along the way, those would be considered incidental instruction. Remember that term, incidental instruction. Let's see what else we've got here. Academic skills linked to the general curriculum and functional skills go together. Meredith was talking about this, the one she was just looking at with this student with the domestic skills and how that all lines in together. That would not be a contradictory practice. That would be a complementary practice. And I think there's a true false question about that, saying that those are contradictory, and they're not contradictory. They certainly are complementary to one another. We accept partial participation for students with severe disabilities. So there's a true false on that. See. We're looking at recreation and leisure activities. We want to have collateral skills of choice making, social interaction, mobility. All those are things we're looking for. Not so much iPad usage. That would be our throwaway answer on that multiple choice. And let's talk for just a second about assistive technology. Meredith, we didn't get to that very much, but is AT a requirement when we're looking at our IEP? Do we have to talk about it?
You do have to address it. It's not
Do have to
necessarily
address it.
required for every student,
But we do
it's-
have to
as
discuss
we-
it, don't we?
Needs to be addressed.
Right.
And that's a question in our review.
Yeah, it has to be considered. So that's a true false question on the quiz as well. Here's one more that we'll talk about real quickly. For students with significant cognitive disabilities, if you have a choice of teaching sight words or phonics, which would you do?
So I teach sight words.
Well, thank you.
I'm glad that's right. According to the text, yes.
Yeah,
I
that's
teach a
also-
whole language approach.
exactly, because phonics is a difficult concept to get across. So you want to teach the whole word, teach what stop looks like on the stop sign, teach what they're going to see on the McDonald's menu, teach those whole words, the sight words, and don't spend a lot of time. By the time a student is, you've determined that a student has a significant cognitive disability, spending a lot of time on phonics is probably, if they haven't, learned to read in the first few efforts, then you're probably not going to get there, and you want to go for a different approach, the whole language, that approach to reading. So let's have as our bonus question this week what Meredith, the word that Meredith uses. This will just be a fill in the blank. The word that Meredith uses for high school students instead of sinners is what? What'd she say it was?
Station.
She uses the word stations for her older students instead of sinners. And so that's our bonus question. I'm just going to have a fill in the blank on that one, okay? And for those of you who had the answer right on the last 2 weeks, I'm going back in and just giving you your points for that. I don't know why those questions have not come out right, but I'm going in and just giving you the right answers. And I really am going to grade papers this week, I promise, okay? Starting tonight or tomorrow, okay? All right. So stations is the correct answer on the bonus question for tomorrow. And I appreciate Meredith coming and talking to us a little bit about her experiences in life skills classrooms with those with significant disabilities and community-based instruction, leisure activities, all those kinds of things. Anybody have any questions for her before we call it a night?
Not for her, but I do have a question about our group project.
Okay, let me let Meredith get off the Zoom, and we'll let her get back to her family, and then we'll entertain questions, okay?
Alrighty.
All right. Bye, Miss
Yes,
Meredith.
thank you. And if anybody needs anything, please feel reach out, like get my email. I've done that with a lot of students that have gone through her program.
Yeah,
So
she's
please
got a
feel free.
relationship with some of my students, so
Yes,
been very
please reach
helpful.
out if you need anything. Thank you so much.
thanks, honey.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, group project. What you got?
Well, I'm
Um,
just curious, are we going to be in groups or is this a individual? I wasn't,
You will
I
be-
wasn't sure.
You will be in groups, and what I will do, and I'll probably go ahead and just do it tonight or tomorrow. I will open up a discussion board where you can put yourself in groups, okay? You can find a group a group of people you want to work with, okay? So I'd say the sooner you start working on that, the better. And let's see, I think there are 12 or 13 in the class, so 3 to 4 in a group. And I would say just go onto that discussion board. I'll open that discussion board, like I say, tonight or tomorrow. And I'll just, name it, forum for, group project. And you can just go in there and say, hey, I'm available, or something like that. Or if you already know somebody that you want to work with, talk with them and then say, Jean Ann and I are available. We need one more person, or we need 2 more people, or something like that. Okay. And then at the end of that discussion, if we've got somebody that, is still floating around, we'll hook them up with somebody. Okay.
And then we just pick a topic according to whatever the instructions were. I don't
Yeah.
have them sitting. in front of me,
Yeah.
so-
And I don't have them sitting here either. I haven't read them today. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Me neither.
Does that make sense? Does that
Yes.
fit your idea of what will work? That's what
Yeah.
we've done in the past. I've had a discussion board where people can just kind of, and some people know each other already, and you may have read the discussion boards of other people and say, oh, okay, I kind of like the way they think, or I don't like the way they think, or something like that. And, or you may have seen some faces on here of people that you think you might like to work with, or others
Right.
that you might like to avoid, or maybe
If
there's
people
somebody
are
that,
judging us,
yeah.
if people are judging us based off of what we put on the discussion board, I don't think anyone wants to write with me or work with me. They'd be like, "Not that girl." Oh my gosh. Have you
Well-
read our discussion boards yet, Dr. Cavan?
I've read some of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you agree with what I said?
Well, I thought your first one was I have read your first one, and your first one was very good. I liked it. You talked about Jill and your passion about that. You remember? Jean Ann,
Oh,
are you frozen?
I think she's frozen.
Is Jean Ann frozen, or am I frozen?
no, you're not.
Ian,
Jean Ann's frozen. You're
Okay.
frozen, Jean Ann.
Yeah.
Okay, there
you
you
see
are.
me?
Now I see you. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, there was one where I was like paraphrasing Dr. Seuss. So like, I'm like, I don't think anyone's going to want to be my friend after that one.
I don't think I've read that one yet. And several of them I've read, but I haven't given grades on because I need to go back and review that complicated rubric. I didn't invent that rubric. Dr. Oh, I can't remember his name now. Dr. Moore invented that rubric, and I hate it. I need to just start all over with that rubric. It's very complicated. X number of points for this and X number of points for that, and then you get more points if you do this. And I hate that rubric. So at some point I'm going to ditch it, but I haven't yet. And I've been teaching this class for about 3 or 4 years now. But that's the rubric he used, and I've just kept it. it always sounds good to me at the beginning of the semester. I think, oh yeah, this rubric is really good. And then when I get into it and start to grade the discussion boards, I hate that rubric. So anyway, I'm gonna dig the rubric out and start giving points for all those discussion boards. But anyway, I would say what I've seen so far, grades look good. You all are hard workers, so don't fret about that. And those of you who have had me before know that the longer I wait to grade papers, the higher your grades. So that's usually the way it works with me. Okay. All right. So that's
Well,
my
then you
project.
just wait a couple more weeks.
Okay. Well, listen, if you've got any other questions, you just let me know and I'm around. Okay. And I'll get that discussion board opened up and get this question on the quiz. All right. All right.
Thank you very
You bet. I'll see y'all soon. Take care. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right.